What's good, YouTube? Back at it again with some more important information. Today in this video, we're going to be going over the new warning that Mr. Gates of Hell himself just recently made. And you guys know, for those of you guys who've been paying attention to what this man has been saying for the longest, you guys know that he's been making these warnings for so long. He's been making these warnings for several years. I mean, like literally, he made a warning before the 2020 situation happened about another event like that happening. And he's making warnings back and forth all over again about an event that's going to be worse than what we saw in 2020 that's going to happen. And now he's warning, as you guys can see by the headline. It says Bill Gates says the world is facing two options: a major war or another pandemic in less than 30 years. How does he know that it's going to be in less than 30 years? Because it's all planned out in advance. That's exactly how they know. And that's why all of their bold predictions, and not even predictions, their warnings about what they're planning on carrying out in the future, that's why it's always come to fruition. Because these people, despite the fact that he's just a puppet, these people they're all working together. They're all working towards the same goal, the same agenda, the 2030 agenda. And you can expect that a lot of really major things to take place as we get closer and closer to 2030. I'm not setting any dates or anything. I'm not telling you that it's going to happen on an exact day, but we know for a fact that these people are not going to stop until they accomplish their goal. And most people are still clueless to it. That's the sad reality. Most people, they still have their heads in the sand. They act like everything's fine and normal, despite, all of the signs that are literally in their faces that things are only going to get worse from here. And that's their plan. So, that's why I can't stress it enough when I tell people, prepare as much as you possibly can physically, mentally, and spiritually, because, people thought 2020 was really bad, but they don't even realize. And even the World Economic Forum recently came out and admitted it too, that the 2020 situation was simply a test. And you can look that up as well. So, yeah, I'm going to just get right into it. There's an audio recording here about what Bill Gates has said about the situation. So I'm going to just play that.
Bill Gates says the world is facing two options: a major war or another pandemic in less than 30 years. There are some questions that keep even billionaire philanthropist and entrepreneur Bill Gates up at night.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it keeps him up at night. Yeah, I'm sure it does.
Will there be another pandemic? Are global tensions going to reach a boiling point, sparking a global war? What would push us to that precipice? While Gates, a father of three, is determinedly optimistic about the likes of AI and eradicating deadly diseases like polio, he remains concerned about either a widespread war or another pandemic. He cited a lot of unrest in the world at the moment, which could...
It's just more lies, because he's not stopping any of that. This man laughs and giggles when he makes warnings about the next big event, because it's a joke to him. It's a joke to this guy. It's a joke to him. It's like when the 2020 situation happened. I bet you he was celebrating. This man was having a blast. Him and his puppet masters. They were all having a blast. They were laughing at the amount of people that just fell for it. And next time when they pull it off again, it's just going to be worse, and they're going to do it even harder.
Could spark a major war. But even if that conflict is avoided, then yes, there will be another pandemic, most likely in the next 25 years, Gates told CNBC Make It. The Microsoft co-founder was unimpressed with the global response to the pandemic and said crucial lessons have been ignored. He was critical of America's response to the crisis, saying, "The country that the world expected to lead and be the model fell short of those expectations. Although some of the lessons from the coronavirus pandemic have been learned, it's been way less than I would expect, sadly," the 69-year-old added. Gates isn't alone in his disappointment. Many other global health advocates are also pushing the Western world for better responses to emerging outbreaks. Professor Paul Hunter is an expert in the epidemiology of emerging diseases based out of the University of East Anglia in Norwich, England. Speaking to Fortune last month about a deadly new strain of Mpox, Professor Hunter said, "In the West, we only really get interested in a disease when it starts directly threatening us. The problem is that so many of these diseases could have been prevented from spreading if the countries on the ground had had the resources." This is a recurring theme, one which was apparent during COVID, he added. The West only gets concerned about controlling epidemics when we start seeing cases, and then it is almost always too late to eradicate the infection. Gates echoed that he hopes health bodies will begin thinking more long-term in the coming years, adding, "Getting our thoughts together about what we did. Well, what we didn't do well is still not happening. Perhaps, in the next 5 years, that'll get better. But, so far, it's quite surprising." This message is also being passed down from the top of the tree. The World Health Organization, WHO, earlier this year, who shared a warning about the spread of the influenza virus through cattle, birds, and humans and urged nations to work together to be better prepared for a pandemic. "There is one certainty. There will be another flu pandemic in the future," said Nicola Lewis, director of the Worldwide Influenza Center. Lewis added, "My message to international communities is that we have to set aside our reticence. We have to set aside our parochial concerns and remember the impacts and the devastating consequences of a global pandemic from whatever disease agent it comes from." World War fears. Gates, who is worth $157 billion per the Bloomberg Billionaires Index, isn't the only influential name warning about a potential global conflict. JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon has previously said geopolitical tensions are the biggest threat facing the global economy, telling CNBC affiliate network CNBC-TV 18 last September. "We have dealt with inflation before, we dealt with deficits before, we have dealt with recessions before, and we haven't really seen something like this pretty much since World War II." He told the Indian news channel, "I think America takes Russia's invasion of Ukraine very seriously. I'm not quite sure how the rest of the world does. You have a European democratic nation invaded under the threat of nuclear blackmail. I think it's been a good response, but it's going to affect all of our relationships until somehow the war is resolved."
So yeah, that's it for the audio recording. Don't forget that they literally had Event 201 months prior to the 2020 situation taking place, where they literally simulated an outbreak taking place and how they would respond to the situation. So again, they do all these exercises, they make all these warnings and stuff because they're showing you, they're not even hiding the fact that they're planning these things. Like, it's in your face, it's just that most people are just too ignorant to realize it. But it goes on to say there are some questions that keep even billionaire Bill Gates up at night, which is nonsense. He doesn't stay up at night from this. This is something that he celebrates and that he loves to see. Will there be another pandemic? Are global tensions going to reach a boiling point, sparking a global war? What would push us to that precipice? While Gates, a father of three, is determinedly optimistic about AI and eradicating, he remains concerned about either a widespread war or another pandemic. He cited a lot of unrest in the world at the moment, which could spark a major war. But even if that conflict is avoided, then yes, there will be another pandemic, most likely in the next 25 years. I would say probably way less than 25 years for a fact, especially with the timeline of their agendas. Gates told CNBC, "Make it." The Microsoft co-founder was unimpressed with the global response to the pandemic and said crucial lessons have been ignored. He was critical of America's response to the crisis, saying the country that the world expected to lead and be the model fell short of those expectations. It's basically a regurgitation of what we heard in the audio recording. Although some of the lessons from the 2020 situation have been ignored, or have been learned, it's been way less than what I would expect, sadly, the 69-year-old added. Gates isn't alone in his disappointment. Many other global health advocates are also pushing the Western world for better responses. Professor Paul Hunter is an expert in the epidemiology of emerging diseases based out of the University of East Anglia in Norwich, England. Speaking to Fortune last month about deadly new strain, Professor Hunter said, in the West, we only really get interested in disease when it starts directly threatening us. The problem is that so many of these diseases could have been prevented. This is all a bunch of BS. You see, because the reality is also, even if a country was truly prepared for whatever nonsense that these people were planning, they would still carry it out anyways, because that's what they need to do for to accomplish their goals. So it doesn't matter how prepared people are. I mean, it's better to be prepared regardless, obviously, like I've been saying. But my point is that no matter how prepared people are, they're still going to carry out these events regardless. So yeah, it goes on to say, this is a recurring theme, one which was apparent during the 2020 situation. He added, the West only gets concerned about controlling epidemics when we start seeing cases, and then it's almost always too late. Gates echoed that he hopes health bodies will begin thinking more long-term in the coming years, adding, getting our thoughts together about what we did well, what we didn't do well is not happening. Perhaps in the next 5 years, that'll get better. It's not going to get better. I'll tell you that much. But yeah, I'm going to just end the video off right there. I thank you guys for watching the video. Please share the video far and wide. Get the word out to as many people as possible. And I'm out.